Coming at you from the Hey Yo Studios. It's the Fade Route with D and Z. Here are your hosts, D and Z.
Coming at you live from the Ayo Studio.
Hey Yo.
It's the Fade Route with D and Z. I am D. We've got a great show for you tonight. Harbaugh and Belichick interview with the Falcons. Stamkos won't be traded. And Dallas and Philly exit early. But we'll begin today's show with the big trade. The Pacers acquire Pascal Siakam. And the Raptors get Bruce Bowen, Jordan Nwora, 3 first-round picks, 2 in 2024 and 1 in 2026. Z, where does this trade land the Pacers?
Well, you put him in with Tyrese Halliburton, and you put him in with Obi Toppin, and Pascal Siakam definitely has them trending in the right direction. Because right now, you got to say that the Indiana Pacers are one of the most surprising teams in the NBA. 23-17. It is a very young team. Pascal Siakam brings in veteran presence. Pascal Siakam has a chip from his days with the Raptors. He plays defense. He scores. He is, he definitely brings that old man River to this team. He's 29 to a young team, He's that veteran presence. And for me, what I like, not just Pascal Siakam, that's a great deal, but the absolute bevy of picks, right? So that is what's intriguing to me. Not so much that the Indiana Pacers are...
So you like the Raptors side of it?
I like both.
Okay.
I like both because Pascal Siakam gives the Pacers the guy that they needed so desperately. And you have Bruce Brown going the other way. The first-round picks going the other way. The New Orleans Pelicans being involved in this trade, okay, fine. But I like the trade from the perspective of both the Pacers and the Raptors, because when you're looking at what you get with Siakam, right, you're looking at 22 points a game, 6 rebounds, almost 5 assists. This is where he is, And I think that in the Eastern Conference, adding a guy like Siakam takes you above Cleveland, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
It doesn't necessarily get you all the way to Milwaukee, but it gets you ahead of Cleveland. And sure. That's really where you want.
Yeah, I think the Warriors missed out on this. I said that he would have been a good fit for the Warriors. Mm-hmm. I think this puts them ahead of Cleveland. I don't know if it puts them ahead of Miami, and I don't know if it puts them ahead of the Knicks. It definitely puts them ahead of the Magic. So where they're within the 6, they shouldn't have to play in a play-in game. But I like the movement before the trade deadline. I think a lot of people are looking at it this year and saying, I'm not waiting for the trade deadline. I'm making moves now. And I think that's very beneficial. You look at teams that are just, I don't know what they're thinking, is like the Hawks, the Bulls, the Nets. They're just out of it now. It's really, the Eastern Conference is really taking its shape. And you're just going to have really teams, in my opinion, you're really just going to have teams playing for home court advantage in the first round. I think that's really what everybody's going to be playing for.
What I find interesting is that the first 8 teams, right, they're all over 500, and generally speaking, they're all trending in the right directions. And then there's such a stark drop-off in the Eastern Conference.
For sure.
You go from the Magic at 22-18, 19-23 for the Bulls, 16-23 for the Nets, 16-23 for the Hawks. The Raptors, we know what they're about now. They traded Anunoby to the Knicks. They traded Siakam.
They're sellers.
That's what they're doing. I would argue that they probably are a little too late, but, better late than never.
They're late at selling?
I think so. I think their window closed a while ago. I think their window closed the moment their moment closed when Kawhi Leonard left.
Yeah. And they got rid of Nick Nurse. Yeah.
Nurse and Kyle Lowry.
For sure. I think they're just trying to get the most. Their asking price was probably really high. And since the beginning, it's kind of dwindled down to now figuring out, okay, give me 2024 first round picks, which really, I know you like them, but there's no college player that everybody's, kind of foaming at the mouth for right now.
No, but you can package that you can package picks. Like happens all the time, right? This is something that happens in the NBA regularly. Pick swaps. You can just outright package them with a player. Like they've got RJ Barrett in a trade. Like they can ship RJ Barrett out if they don't believe that he's the guy.
He's all they got
at this point. Yeah,
Bruce Brown. It's your team, Mr. Canada.
Bruce Brown is a guy who's destined to be moved. He's a flip. Like he's a guy that's going to get turned around or bought out completely because he's going to be the guy.
He can play.
He can play, but he's not part of a rebuild. He'll get you something else. He'll get you a second round pick, or he'll get you like an expiring contract or something. Like he's not the future in Toronto. But the Eastern Conference, it's really a stark drop off, and a really, it's really precipitous. But it's kudos to the Raptors for recognizing what's going on and recognizing they're not going to be a part of this. So do what you need to do, and I think that the Pacers, kudos to them for going for it, because as of right now, if the playoffs ended today, and I know the playoffs don't end today, but it's a fun little exercise to have. If the playoffs ended today, they draw the Sixers in the first round. Pascal Siakam makes no better matchup against the Sixers. Do I think they could beat the Sixers in a 7-game series? No. But Siakam gets them closer.
Okay.
Siakam certainly gets them closer. And if the Cavs don't do anything, right? If the Cavs don't better their team, I can definitely see them swapping places, and then they have a home court scenario playing the Heat. And are they necessarily better than the Heat? No, but they'll give them a run for their money. Like Jimmy Butler will impose his will on that series. I don't see anybody imposing their will on the series for the Pacers, right? I mean, Tyrese Halliburton's good. I don't know if he's imposed his will on the series good. Like, only time will tell about that. But time has told for the NFL playoffs. Like, we're out of super wild card weekend, and we begin today's show proper with the biggest upset in the NFL playoffs. How about them Cowboys? Losing at home in Jerry World to the Green Bay Packers. Reports are the Niners were watching, and they started getting ready for the Packers during the second quarter of the game, when the Packers jumped out to a 27-0 lead over the Cowboys. So we kind of missed out on this. We kind of figured that this would be one of the layups, right? We did.
Both of us.
We did. We said that would be the. We said that would be the only one that
shows what we know.
Right. Well, we identified that would be the true upset. We just didn't have the guts to pick it. So there's that. We have eyes. We just don't have quills. So what went wrong for the Cowboys, and where do they go from here?
Well, the other thing is we just got the reports that there will not be a coaching change. Mike McCarthy will be back next year.
Great.
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, as far as the X's and O's are concerned, they lost Van Der Esch, for Van Den Bosch, whatever his name is. Van Der Esch, their linebacker. And since then, they've been trying to get away with playing, nickel and dime coverages. And the Packers took advantage of that. They had arrested Aaron Jones, who was hurt most of the year, and they burned him. Run the ball on your ass, and then when we have you on your heels, we're going to throw. And, we give Coach LaFleur a lot of shit on this show, but his team came ready to play. They came with a game plan, and they executed it. And on the Dallas side, it seemed like they weren't ready to play. That's what it felt like to me. Excuse me. It seemed like McCarthy and Quinn, they didn't get them ready to play the Packers. And they thought, since they were undefeated all year at home, that the Packers were going to come in and they were going to slap them. And that's just not the case. I mean, at one point it was 27-0 in the second quarter. I mean, it was pretty bad. And then aside from the X's and O's, there just seems to be how do I say it's like there's a bravado when you become a Cowboy. It's almost like you think things are going to be given to you. All eyes are on you because you're a Dallas Cowboy, and no one's working hard for it. No one's, this is supposed to be America's team. It's a privilege to be a Cowboy, but they're looking at it the other way around. It's like, I'm a Cowboy, and everybody's supposed to pay attention to me. And it doesn't seem like nobody's earning their stars. Nobody's earning their stripes with the team. And you have a lame duck coach. You have a coach that, if you get chewed out in practice by McCarthy, but Jerry's the one I just gotta make Jerry happy. I gotta make you happy. You could be fired tomorrow. I'm not going nowhere, because I'm CeeDee Lamb or I'm Michael Gallup, right? That was the other problem. It's like they couldn't get Michael Gallup the ball. Michael Gallup was being defended by a practice squad corner, and they couldn't get Michael Gallup the ball. Pollard was disappointing all season. He was disappointing this weekend, and Dak didn't show up. I hate to say this, and I do like Dak, but he's a third-round pick from Mississippi State. I mean, what are we expecting from him? Just like Romo. Romo, what, Northern Illinois, Eastern Illinois? Like, this isn't like Troy Aikman from UCLA. Like, this is not what these guys are. These are, they're quarterbacks, and they've earned the right to start, but these are the Dallas Cowboys. It's not easy to put on that jersey and wear that star. That's where I'm at.
Heavy lies the head that wears the star. But I think that the Packers had a game plan, and they knew what the Cowboys were going to do, and the Cowboys just could not match what the Packers were doing. The Packers ran the ball down their throat.
Yeah.
The one thing
you want to come out nickel? Fine. No problem. We're gonna fucking run. We're gonna run the ball. We're gonna run the ball the outside. We're gonna run the ball the inside. We're gonna do misdirection.
When you look at the Dallas Cowboys defensive line, compare that to a guy like Vita Vea, right? Vita Vea is a big motherfucker,
and he plays low, man.
He plays low. He's a big dude. He's a load. Like those Dallas Cowboys, they're like skinny. They're trim. They're muscular.
Look at the numbers. Parsons, 2 tackles, 1 solo, 1 quarterback hit. Pretty sure I could have did that this weekend.
The big guys.
Manhandle, man.
The big guys for the Packers played big. Right? They played bigger. They played stronger. It didn't matter how fast the Cowboys were. They could not move around that beef.
I don't think there's real home field advantage in Dallas either. I mean, it's not like, you go to Detroit. I mean, there's some kind of home field advantage there.
But what have we been saying about the Cowboys? Like, they're front runners, man. If you get out early, you can demoralize them.
Right. And the other thing is like their defense works best when they have a lead. When they can just pin their ears back and run and try to get after the quarterback. But when we think about Dallas this year, I mean, it's not – yes, it is surprising that they lost to the 7th seed, but are we surprised that they lost? Really? I mean, they almost lost to Detroit. They played some bad games this year, especially away from home. So it is what it is. And as far as running it back with this team, I mean, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but accepting different results. But I really don't know what other options he has. You're gonna bring another offensive coordinator in to change the terminology. You think you're gonna get better than Mike McCarthy to coach the offense of this team?
No.
You think you're gonna probably have to. You probably, if they're smart, they go get Ron Rivera to run the defense if Dan Quinn leaves. But I mean, if I'm the Seahawks, am I taking Dan Quinn now? I don't know about that. I'll go take Mike Vrabel before I take Dan Quinn after what just happened, right? I mean,
Dan Quinn's stock took a major hit.
Dude, you couldn't stop anybody. It's Jordan Love, and Jordan Love's been playing very well towards the end of the season. But dude, we can't get a stop. We can't get a stop. But yeah, so I mean,
very well.
I'm fine with rolling it back with McCarthy because I don't think you can really do better. I think they play better than they played when they had Jason Garrett there. I don't think they should blow it up. You make one or two moves. What?
You can't.
Well, no, I think they could. Yeah, sure they could. You don't think there's a market for Dak Prescott? There's a market for Dak Prescott. You don't think there's a market for Pollard? There's a market for Pollard.
No, there's no market for Pollard.
There's a market for Pollard, man.
Tony
need running back depth. They need running back. Yeah, but
Tony Pollard has demonstrated that he is a second-tier running back.
Right, but there are teams that only have one guy. Like, they would prefer to have him be... Like, you're telling me that New York Jets wouldn't want to have Pollard as their second guy? That seems like a perfect move for the New York Jets. You're telling me the Cardinals wouldn't want Pollard to be their second guy to James Conner? Like, he's a good second guy. The Broncos would love to have him in a zone scheme. Like, yeah, he's a second guy, and he's shown that, and that's okay. But there's a market for him. There's a market for Brandon Cooks. There's always a market for Brandon Cooks. You know, there's a market for some of these guys. There's a market. But, I mean, I don't think they're going to... I would just keep it going. It's like, whatever. Who are you worried about? Who scares you in the NFC East? Especially after Philly just collapsed. They're going to lose Jason Kelce, and their line is suspect. So you've still got a chance in the East. But, you know, from an unexpected...
hang on. Before you go on. Yeah. It's not about the East. Like, that's the misconception of all of this, right? Like, what have the Dallas Cowboys not done since 1995? Won a Super Bowl.
Uh-huh.
Like, it's too low-hanging fruit to worry about the East.
Mm.
Like, what you need to do is you need to build for February. And what they have failed to do is build toward February. These teams have failed to build toward February. You can say that about the Dolphins. You can say that about the Eagles. You can say that about the Cowboys. They can light up the opponent. They can light up the sky in September and October. But when it comes right down to it, when it matters the most, when it gets colder and when you need to start running the rock, they could not do it. And credit to, Gallup didn't have as good of a game as CeeDee Lamb. They both were over 100 yards receiving. They did as much as they could do.
But now,
were they behind? Yes.
Yeah, that was all in garbage time. And Dak played like shit in the first half. He played like dog shit. And you can tell he was telegraphing. No. He was telegraphing all his passes. All he was doing was looking for Lamb. All he was doing was looking for Lamb. And you can't do that against a team. You can't do that in the playoffs. And and the other thing is why didn't Michael Gallup get the ball more? He had a fucking practice squad guy on him. And this was supposed to be Jerry's boy. He's been on this team, and he's been around for so long, and he was supposed to be the dedicated two. Where were you, dude? Is that on him? I actually think it's on Dak. I think Dak had a terrible game. Dak played like dog shit. Dak is the reason why they lost the game.
No, the defense is the reason why they lost.
But the defense is what the defense is. Like, this has been the defense since they lost their linebacker. This is what they do. They go into nickel, and if they're gonna let you run it. They're gonna let you run it because they're gonna try and stop you from passing the ball. That's been the scheme. We've talked about that for the last 6 weeks. That's been the scheme. But the whole thing is that Dak was a MVP conversations at some point this season. And then he played like dog shit over the weekend against
That was bogus too.
a shit defense. That defense is ranked near the bottom versus the pass, and you couldn't pass the fucking football. They have this guy Ferguson who's supposed to be the future at tight end. Where the fuck was he? How did he not get the ball?
He got it on the goal line. But that's when they got him. He's not Jason Witten.
He's not Jason Witten, but you moved in this direction because everyone was all about him being the future. Like they let go of Schultz and they pretty much ran into this situation because this guy was supposed to be the future at tight end. Where was he? And that's not him. I really think it was on Dak. I think it's on Dak. But the other part of it's on Dak. But the other part of the equation is, what could I really expect from Dak at this point? He's been with this team for how many years? Why am I surprised? Why am I surprised that he shits the bed? What?
This is who he is.
Right. And this is who he is. And that's okay. That's okay. This is who you are. And we're foolish if we think otherwise in any way, shape, or form. That's what this weekend proved. This weekend proved who Dak Prescott is. And that's it. You are a third-round pick from Mississippi State, and you're okay. You're okay. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't have to be more than okay. What needs to happen is he is a game manager. Like, that's who he is. He's not a dynamic player. He's not that guy. Now, you establish that you need a running game, right? Ezekiel Elliott was that guy for years. He's not there anymore. Tony Pollard's not the guy. You know who you get? You go get Dalvin Cook because he ain't gonna be with the Ravens next year.
Nah, I don't know about that. I mean, I think if your assessment of Dak as a game manager on this team is not winning a Super Bowl.
They're not winning a Super Bowl with him anyway.
No, so I'm just trying to say, like, a game manager, like Tom Brady was a game manager with the Patriots his first Super Bowl because they had a really good defense and they could run the ball and he didn't turn the ball over. When you're a game manager, you don't turn the ball over. This motherfucker's turning the ball over.
The issue is that this team is not going to win the world. It's not going to win the Super Bowl regardless because it's not built to win a Super Bowl. Like, in the same way that the Miami Dolphins are not built to win a Super Bowl. It's too out fast. It's too much flash, too much early.
I want it late.
I'd rather have it late. I don't want it in September. Yeah, but I'm not comparing.
I'm not comparing Dallas to the Dolphins. The Dolphins have a whole nother issue. There's a whole nother issue with that team because they not only can they not beat good teams, but they can't win in cold weather. Like they need a home playoff game. That's what they need. And them losing to Tennessee, that jacked them up. And then losing to Buffalo in the last game of the season jacked them up. I think if that game is played in Miami, you probably have the same outcome, but it's a better game. They score more points. And I'm kind of getting out on McDaniels. Like, I like him. He's a cool coach, but I can't imagine him winning a Super Bowl. Mike McCarthy's won a Super Bowl. I think what they were doing earlier in the season when they had Van Der Esch, I think they were okay. And I don't think Stephon Gilmore's healthy. They lost Diggs. Like, there are parts of the signs were up from Jump Street. They fucking lost to the Cardinals, man. Like, they got blowed out by the 49ers. Like, it shouldn't be a surprise as much as we're talking about it as a surprise. Like, you and I both said it was unlikely upset. We were wrong, because if you think about the body of work that the Dallas Cowboys put in this year and how well Jordan Love and the Packers played towards the end of the season, we should have been surprised.
No, we shouldn't have been surprised at all. Now, you're looking at quality of win, quality of loss. The quality of losses, you have the Niners. They got blown out by the Niners. They lost close to the Eagles, but the Eagles kind of proved who they were. They lost to the Bills. We now see who the Bills are.
I don't know if we see who the Bills are. I'm not going to sell on that. I really don't know. I don't know. The only thing, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, the only thing I'll say about the Bills and why they have a good chance to make it to the Super Bowl is because they've been tested all year. They've lost close games. They've won close games. They've been in, they have really been tested every single week this year. The only thing that might hurt them this weekend is they're playing the defending champions, and they lost 5 starters in that game over the weekend. That might hurt them.
That is what's going to hurt them. But you know what they're doing? And they adapted by firing Ken Dorsey. They brought in Joe Brady. And what they start doing when they brought in Joe Brady? They started running the fucking football.
Yeah, but their coach is a jerk. I heard this recent thing where he wanted his players to go out and play like terrorists. Dude, wrong choice of words there, man. Like, what are you saying? What is the matter with you? Why would you say something like that?
Sean McDermott is a complete idiot.
Yeah, I can't get on board with him or what they're doing, but I don't know how that's gonna go.
Do you love brownies? Of course you love brownies. But you know what's better than a brownie? A delicious, handcrafted, gourmet brownie delivered right to your doorstep. That's what our guys at Sweet Life Brownie Co. offer. Chef Tommy D and the crew offer a dozen delicious delights that you will crave, from the classic OB to Dutch apple to campfire s'mores and many more. Check out their website, sweetlifebrownieco.com, for their Friday brownie drops. At noon, their site goes live and you see what they're making. Since you're there, become a site member and earn points. You earn 50 points just by signing up. Make sure you follow them on Instagram and Facebook too, at sweetlifebrownie_co, for the latest updates and their latest releases and creations. That's sweetlifebrownieco.com. Give them a call, 845-641-3043, and tell them D&Z sent you. That's sweetlifebrownieco.com, 845-641-3043. Sweet Life Brownie Co., because there's always room for a brownie. Well, we didn't know it was going to go this bad, but you had an expectation that something like this was going to happen. The Tampa Bay Bucks knocked out the defending NFC champion Eagles 32-9. I don't think we expected 32-9. So how far can the Bucks go with Todd Bowles coaching the defense and Baker Mayfield commanding the offense? And what does this mean for the Eagles? We know that Jason Kelsey's retiring, or so he says.
Yeah,
right?
I think he's gone.
You gotta take it with a grain of salt in the heat of the moment immediately after the game. We'll see.
I don't think he wanted to even play this year. I think he came back this year because they got to the Super Bowl and they lost a close game. He also played his brother in the Super Bowl. I think he just came back because, okay, yeah, let's give this another shot. I think we're close, but I mean, the way they closed the season, the way they played, but I said it all year. That they didn't look right. The number, that offensive line looked like trash. I understand they had the tush push, which got stopped. It got stopped for only the second or third time all season over the weekend.
And the Bucks did it. The Bucks were the only team that did it.
Because with Vita Vea, you can't move Vita Vea, man.
No.
That's what that was about.
Absolutely.
So I mean,
but how far can they go? What is the ceiling for the Bucks?
The thing with the Bucks is Todd Bowles is a hell of a defensive coach. So I can't see his teams getting blown out. And on the offensive side of the ball, they got weapons, man. Godwin, Evans, White, those guys are all good players. Their offensive coordinator called a great game. Baker played really well, not turning over. He has a good rapport with his receivers, and his receivers like him. It's not saying they didn't like Tom, but I believe that when Tom was there, they were in awe of Tom. Like Baker, they look at him as one of us. He's one of us. He's not elite. He's not garbage. He's one of us. And I think this is going to get him a new contract in Tampa. But I don't think they could. I think they could beat Detroit. I don't think they could beat the 49ers. and I don't think they could beat the Packers, as weird as that sounds. So I think they can get through the next round, but they're not going to get to the championship. And as far as the Eagles are concerned, I mean, Sirianni's meeting with, the brass these last couple of days. It just never looked right to me. I know they were winning games and they started out, I think, like 10-1. But they did lose. They did lose to the Jets. Hurts looked hurt. AJ Brown seemed dysfunctional. Like at times he wanted to be a part of the team, other times he didn't want to be a part of the team. They seemed to have issues running the ball. They were only averaging, I think, 17 or 18 points a game. They were getting gashed on defense. The whole defense was a nightmare. They had to switch coordinators, and Patricia somehow got to call plays. They were giving up, I want to say, 8 yards at carry on the run. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, how is this possible? So I don't know.
The secondary looked lost.
Yeah.
The secondary looked lost on Monday. Palmer was gashing them big. You had guys running into each other. You had a tight end wide open.
But nobody wanted to tackle either. There was no heart. They were a defeated team going in there. We all thought that, even though I picked the Bucks, I thought they would come into the game with some heart and some grit and say, okay, let's put the last 6 weeks behind us. As soon as the Bucks scored, I think the Bucks scored an opening drive, they're like, oh, here we go again. Same old. I guess this is going to be bad. And maybe this falls on Jason Kelce. I don't know. Maybe there was no leadership. Because I didn't see Hurts walking up and down, getting in people's faces and saying anything. He was sitting away from the team most of the time. Kelce was...
That was Dallas Goedert yelling at him.
Yeah. And then you had Kelce. Kelce was sitting on the sideline talking to Lane Johnson and talking to the coaches, but there was no fire. There was no fire. So, yeah.
This strikes me as a team that believed its own press clippings from day one. And I think that starts with the coach. I said several weeks ago on this here show that I don't know how good of a head coach this guy is. And I still don't know how good of a head coach this guy is, because he's not delivering the goods, right? He's being a petulant child after the Chiefs game, talking shit, taunting fans, and then they proceed to go on a 1-6 slide, including getting bounced from the playoffs. So he strikes me as an immature dunderhead. So that's who he is as a person, and that's who he is as a coach. The team regressed offensively. Devontae Smith is the only one who legitimately showed up. Devontae Smith had a hell of a game. He balled out.
He had to.
He's the guy. He's the guy that the Giants wanted. The Eagles traded with the Cowboys to get him, or the Giants could get him. That's what they did. So, kudos to Howie Roseman for identifying that. Now Howie Roseman's starting to get a little bit of clackback from pundits. That's what I find very interesting, that an semblance of talent is not a team. And we know this. We've seen this in many sports, right? We think back to the Lakers, where they had Gary Payton and Steve Nash and Kobe and Shaq, and they lost to the Pistons, right? A good team is not a collection of superstars. We see that in multiple sports. But it's a failure on coaching. It's a failure on the players to rally the troops. DeAndre Swift did not move the needle this year.
I think he was hurt. I mean, I think he played well at points, but I think he was hurt. I do. I don't think he was. I mean, but everybody's hurt this time of the year, right? But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, because there were at times he did look like a stud, but then there were times when he was hurt.
But I have to say, though, Detroit was right for moving on for their running back core, right? They brought in Montgomery and they drafted Gibbs.
Oh, and they got rid of Hockenson because they had Laporta. Talk about that draft.
Right. Hockenson got hurt. Jamal Williams regressed. He had to get that bullshit touchdown that Jameis Winston gifted him on the fake victory formation. That was his only touchdown of the year. And then DeAndre Swift looked mediocre for a good chunk of the season. So kudos to the Lions for seeing an opportunity to upgrade, and they upgraded big time. But Jalen Hurts, he was running for his life a little bit, got caught with that safety. That was a bad decision. Get rid of the ball. Like, you definitely need to get rid of the ball sooner. But the offensive line, it's started to get pushback, right? You got big, beefy men on the other side of the ball starting to impose their will on this vaunted offensive line. And guess what? It started to crumble. Lane Johnson, he's been false starting for the past 2 seasons and never gets called. Middle of the year, things start to get called. Jordan Mailata had a decent year. Jason Kelsey had a decent run this year. Had a couple slip-ups, a couple of lapses in concentration. Right? At the end, it makes you wonder, right? How many times was too many times for this tush push? Like, were they worn out from pushing that tush so many times? Because you got to figure that offensive line, they were doing it at least 4 times a game. And then on 2-point conversions too. So you figure you get beat up enough and you just can't go anymore. But the Buccaneers took this game. Right? I had concerns. Baker had an ankle injury coming in. He had a rib injury coming in. But you definitely had a legitimate concern. And plus, he's Baker Mayfield, right? He's, just like Joe Flacco had a bad game, Baker Mayfield's due for bad games. As much as he lit it up on Monday, it wouldn't have surprised me if he threw 3 picks. Because that's who Baker is. That's who Josh Allen is. That's who these guys are. So it didn't surprise me at all. But kudos to them. They took it. They took it from the Eagles. Rachaad White took it from the Eagles, right? Cade Otton. Who's this guy? Like, they have a legit tight end out there. Like, Cade Otton was their leading receiver. Like, David Moore, two receptions for 66 and a tutty. Trey Palmer. Who are these guys? Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were like the 4th and 5th receivers on this team in terms of yardage. So all of a sudden the Bucs are surprisingly deep. And who knew, right? I mean, and coming out of that division, it's very easy to discount them because who they played? They played Carolina twice. They played the rotting corpse of the Falcons. They played the Saints. Okay, they got a squad. Now, what's their ceiling? How far can they go? This is going to be a fight. This is going to be the game of the week. Forget Bills Chiefs. I want to see this one because Baker's got a chip on his shoulder. Todd Bowles has a chip on his shoulder. Dan Campbell, the entire city of Detroit has a chip on their shoulder. Like, that is going to be an all-out brawl. And I could see them knocking off the Lions just as much as I can see the Lions knocking them off. It's going to be it's going to be a slobber knocker, as Jim Ross liked to say. And could they survive? Sure. They absolutely can. I can totally see that. Beyond that, not a chance. Not a chance. Because that means San Francisco. And I really don't see them knocking off San Francisco. But you're 100% right. Baker might as well just sign that contract now because it's as good as gold. He's got it. It's there. And on the other side, on the flip side, Eagles, like with Sirianni, I don't know how comfortable you feel knowing that there's a guy like Jim Harbaugh out there, that there's a guy like Bill Belichick out there. Like, I don't know how comfortable you are in your situation right now because the Eagles have been constantly revamping. They've constantly taken what they've had and upgraded, right? They've always found, shiny object syndrome. Nothing shinier than Jim Harbaugh. Nothing shinier than Bill Belichick. So they have some soul searching to do, and the Bucs have to strap it in because they have a fight on their hands. Speaking of fight on their hands, there was no fight in the Miami Dolphins. They were straight blown out by the Chiefs on Saturday, 26-7. The Dolphins couldn't get anything done offensively as temperatures were as low as negative 25 degrees. At times, the Dolphins looked unbeatable, hanging 70 on the Broncos very early in the season. But then they looked terrible in games against the Eagles, Titans, and Bills. Can Mike McDaniel coach the Miami Dolphins to a Super Bowl?
I mean, I think the answer that I have to say to that is no. I don't think so. He's a Mickey D, right? He's Josh McDaniels to me. He's a brilliant X's and O's offensive guy, but to motivate players that are playing in South Florida to go to Buffalo, to go to Miami, to go to Denver. I know he went to Denver and whooped their ass, but that was in the fall. But to do it in the winter, in the cold, and to get up and play, I don't see it. I don't see it happening. I mean, let's be real. You could probably say this about a lot of teams, but if there was no Tyreek Hill, how good are the Dolphins? They lost Jalen Waddle for a while. That really affected their team too. Now with the running game's on point, he coached the shit out of a running game, but I just think his act gets old. I think it's when it's in the beginning, it's fresh, it's new. He's a weird guy, so when the things he says to you, it gets you amped, it gets you motivated, it gets you play. But when it's negative 25 degrees and you're down by 2 scores, I don't know if he could really rally you to play. And I'm also a guy that's, as much as I believe in the pass, you got to be able to run the football. They can run the football, but you can tell that when they're down, their offense changes. And he even said it. He said it at the end of the game that they're going to learn from this. He's going to be better. They're all going to be better. That's all true. But in that division where you got to beat Josh McDaniels, you got to beat Josh Allen. In that conference where you got to beat Burrow, you've got to beat Herbert, you got to beat Mahomes. I just don't see it.
Well, there's a lot of soul searching that needs to be done, right? Like you said, we're going to learn from this. And what happened? He didn't get his quarterback killed this year, so he's growing.
Right. I thought that was great. They went to the whole, 3 seconds and out, and it really did work. Saved his life.
But you know what? You lost Waddle, and you lost several members of the offensive line. You lost several members of the defensive line, to the point where you had to go bring in Justin Houston off the street. So there's something to be said about this. He was the guy with Kyle Shanahan when all of that shit went down, when all these guys were dropping like flies. Right? He goes to Miami, and all these guys drop like flies. His system gets people hurt. Plain and simple. Mike McDaniel's system gets people hurt. So he needs to look in the mirror, and he needs to adjust his system to make sure that his team is there in not even February. Can you get me to the last week of December? Can you at least get me there in one piece? You got there with Tua. Okay, you tinkered that. Now tinker with the rest of the team, because you need a whole team to get this going. Now, once you get into the playoffs, this cutesy pass, and that's what it is. It's cute, right? I've said that several times about Mike McDaniel's offense. It's cute. When you're in a street fight, when you're in a slugfest, cute goes out the window. You got to be able to bludgeon the other team. And his offense doesn't do that. If he's in a dome, or if he's in the heat of Miami, sure, he could possibly run it up against a shitty team. Right? He did it early on in the season with the Broncos. The Broncos aren't in the playoffs. The worst team in the AFC was the Steelers, right? They were the number 7 seed. The Pittsburgh Steelers would have put a whooping. I'm not saying they would have won the game. They would have put a whooping on Tua, right? They would have been in his kitchen, because that's what the Steelers do. When the time comes, you need to be able to be physical. That's what playoff football is. It's attrition. And his system is not based on that. So Mike McDaniel is good enough. He's a good enough to get you beat coach. There you go. He's a good enough to get you beat coach. Sorry, I like him a lot. He's personally, I've been watching a lot of video clips. Yes, he's kind of a douche sometimes. Right? He's kind of like he's a more likable Nick Sirianni in terms of douchiness. But you know what? Like, after seeing a couple clips from Hard Knocks, like, the guy is in recovery. He's a recovering alcoholic. Like, you know, I'm the more I get to know him, the more I get to like him, and the more I want to root for him. But then I see his team play, and I'm like, dude, you ain't learned nothing. You didn't learn a damn thing. Like, and now, you know, it's calling into question. You also have to call into question not just Mike McDaniel, but is Tua the guy? Now, I'm willing, and I don't know if you're willing, so I'll ask you this. In a game where the wind chill takes it down to -30, I'm discounting player performances because you're lucky you're even out there. Like, you have no reason.
15 people had to be hospitalized for frostbite and hypothermia that were in the stands for that game.
Yeah, like Patrick Mahomes, his helmet cracked.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
It did its job.
So it did its job. It protected his head. It protected the melon. But, you know, that's how cold it was. That equipment was cracking and equipment was breaking because it was so cold outside. I'm willing to discount Tua's performance. 20 of 39, 199, a touchdown, and a pick. Now, maybe that's just me being forgiving, but I think if you put Tua, if it's in a normal, you know, temperature range, I think he performs better. But you have many pundits saying, like, oh, this is it, this is who he is, he's not, you know, he's no good, he's just, you know, he's an overrated quarterback, he's not going to win the big one. I think it's a little premature. Maybe that's just me. What say you on that? Where do you stand on Tua as a franchise quarterback? Do you think he can deliver the goods?
Yeah, if he can stay healthy, for sure. 100%. He could deliver the ball accurately, and he makes very good decisions. So I do think he's legit. You could build a team around him. He proved that this year. Seems like the head's not going to be an issue. So he's got, I mean, I know you compare lefty to lefty. He's got a lot of Steve Young-like qualities. So I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's just it's much ado about nothing, and the pundits just need to blame somebody for the Dolphins losing, and they've decided to just put it on McDaniel and put it on Tua.
Avoid messy accidents. Get better stopping power with your brake pads. Callahan brake pads. You never know when you'll be driving in the road and there will be a truck tire that you need to avoid and save your family. Callahan Auto. We really care about what's under your hood.
Speaking of putting it on somebody, clearly the New England Patriots decided to put all of their recent woes on Coach Bill Belichick, as Coach parted ways. I love this new euphemism. We've mutually parted ways. You fired him. You fired. But, you know, if my job parts ways with me, like, they fired me. So, you know, maybe that's just me. But Bill Belichick was fired by the Patriots last week after over 20 years of success. The parting was allegedly mutual, but it certainly seemed like firing. Belichick still wants to coach, so he's interviewed for the Falcons. I think he's on track to also interview for the Commanders, and he's also thinking about the Chargers as well. Meanwhile, Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh interviewed for the Chargers. He just finished his interview as well for the Commanders.
And the Falcons.
That's right. Arthur Blank and his blank check. This could be very interesting. However, Harbaugh's still under contract with Michigan. He's testing the waters, though. So, which position seems like a better fit for these two coaches? And is anybody going to pull the trigger on Jim Harbaugh?
You know, I don't see the value in getting a guy like Belichick. The only thing I could say, especially now that the Dallas job is not open, like, the only thing I would say, you know, maybe it'd be nice if he went to the Eagles. I mean, they're a team that's pretty close, and I don't think players today respond well to his coaching tactics and his coaching methods. Putting people on the spot, expecting them to be accountable, being able to answer for your poor decision making on the football field. Players don't like that anymore. Nowadays, I feel like you've got to be the coach. You got to be the players' friends. You got to be social with them. You got to be relatable. So I think Harbaugh is the better fit for some teams. I just don't see the allure of the Atlanta job unless Atlanta's got some plan to get a quarterback. I mean, they have the running back, but I don't see the allure of coaching that team other than, the division is shit. If you were to get a competent quarterback, you probably could make some noise. Outside of how bad the ownership is in LA, where the Chargers are, to me, that's the most attractive job because you got players on defense. You got really good players on defense. You've got a quarterback. You've got receivers. You've got tight ends. Like, you've got talent. The only problem is the ownership. And you're also in a division with Pat Mahomes. That kind of thing sucks. So, yeah, I would say I think, the fact that Harbaugh actually went to interview with the Falcons makes me think that this is all bullshit, right? Because you would think that he would come and just say, okay, I want the Charger job. Are you going to give it to me? Yes or no? I just find it weird that he would go talk to the Falcons. Like, why is anybody talking to the Falcons,
Well, I find it very interesting that Bill Belichick is even willing to interview. It's like, I'm fucking Bill Belichick. I expect an offer on my desk.
Maybe.
Like, forget that. I mean, I understand the Rooney Rule. Before anybody comes at me, I understand the Rooney Rule. But he's Bill Belichick.
But what is he bringing? What is he bringing with him? Like, what is he bringing to the table? I don't want to hear about Matt Patricia. I don't want to hear about Josh McDaniels. Like, if you're going to try to bring in this whole coaching philosophy that you established in New England over the last 25 years, that shit ain't going to work here. We don't got that kind of time. You don't have that kind of time. You're 70 years old, 71 years old. We don't got that kind of time, Bill. So, like, how are you going to turn this around quickly? Because all the teams you're interviewing with aren't winners.
Well, here's the thing. I would argue that the Falcon job is better than the Chargers job because Keenan Allen's a free agent. Austin Eckler's a free agent. Gerald Everett's a free agent. Pretty much anybody not named Joey Bosa.
But they don't have a quarterback. Whether you're Harbaugh or if you're Belichick, we need a quarterback. They don't got a quarterback. All right? So unless the Falcons are telling you, okay, we're going to acquire Kirk Cousins in the offseason, or we're going to make a play for
Justin Fields for the number 8 pick.
Yeah.
That's in play.
Unless they're coming in and saying that, what are we talking about? We're fucking talking about Desmond Ridder? We're going to talk about how you couldn't beat the Jaguars? Like, what are we talking about here?
As currently constituted, no. But if I'm in this meeting, right, and Arthur Blank and the GM, they're going through like, okay, here's our plan, right? We have an offer on the table for the number 8 pick. We're going to send him to Chicago. We're going to bring in Justin Fields. Now, all of a sudden, that job looks a lot more attractive because I have Justin Fields as opposed to Taylor Heineke, as opposed to Desmond Ridder, right? Like, I have a competent quarterback who can be dynamic, who can lead a team. I have Bijan Robinson, right? Who my last coach didn't want to play.
Yeah, but if you're Harbaugh and they're saying
Harbaugh's a pipe dream.
Okay, so if they're Bill Belichick, well, what are we giving up to get Justin Fields? Because they ain't gonna just give him away for a ham sandwich.
That's it, number 8.
That ain't gonna happen, man. They ain't just gonna swap picks. Are you crazy? It's the number. Well, they got the number 2 pick. They got the number 1. They got the number 1 pick in the draft. They ain't gonna just swap with you.
No. They'll have 1, 8, and 9 because they're
gonna want more than that, man. They're not gonna just swap that. They're not gonna just do that. You're gonna have to give them players. You're gonna have to give them at least another player.
No, you don't. Picks. That's the beauty part.
You're telling me if you're the Chicago Bears and the Atlanta Falcons call you in the same conference as you, and they say we just want to swap picks. You're gonna jump all over that?
I'm not swapping picks. I'm swapping the number 8 pick for Justin Fields, a proven player in the league. That's what I'm saying. That is my offer. Now, they're going to take Caleb Williams, number 1. If they're willing to move Justin Fields, they're taking Caleb Williams, right? That puts them in the range for the kid from Washington if they're so desperate for a wideout. Because you figure Marvin Harrison Jr. is gone. You figure by the time they get to 8, Harrison's gone. So I can have Williams and that kid Rome from Washington. Fields is not fitting into my plans anyway. So if I can turn something into nothing, right? If I can turn nothing into something, that's good. I'm here for it. And if I'm the Falcons, I would make that trade because he's better than who I got. He'll be cheaper than because what's my alternative? I'm going to throw a boatload of dough at Kirk Cousins? I'm not going to throw money. I don't need to throw money at this problem because I need to fix the rest of the team if I'm the Falcons. And what Bill Belichick will bring to this team, for one, is a defensive identity. Bill Belichick is still a good defensive head coach. He's still a defensive coach at the heart of it. What he can't be is a player personnel guy. I think we're in agreement on that. Like Bill Belichick as player personnel the ship has long since sailed. So if you can bring in a coordinator, if Bill can identify a coordinator that's not Josh McDaniels, that's not Bill O'Brien, bring in a new voice. Because I want to liken this to Tom Coughlin, right? Tom Coughlin was Joe Harbaugh, right? And the team eventually was sitting down and they were ready to run him out of town in New York. Tom Coughlin recognized he needed to change. So Bill Belichick is at that point in his career. It's that moment where he realizes that there has to be an element of change here. Otherwise, I might as well just retire. And that is embracing the players. I don't know how he does it because he's made a 20-year career out of being Darth Vader. Like, that's who he is, right? The system is above all people. You're completely interchangeable parts. We'll cut you the moment something goes. Look at Jonah Gray, right? Jonah Gray had one great game and he got cut, 2 games later? Right? Fantastic, John. Now, clean out your locker.
And your playbook. Thanks.
Yep. There was one man who was above the system, and it was TB12. And even then, he wasn't that far above the system because he would still get ragged on. But you're right. There needs to be a kinder, gentler, softer side to Bill Belichick. I don't know how he does that. Maybe he shows his grandkids, like Tom Coughlin brought his grandkids around. Like, it showed that the man was human. So maybe Belichick needs to embrace his humanity a little bit. Harbaugh, he'll run his ass out in 2 years. Like, I give him 2 years in the NFL before he's running back to college. Coach Kaki doesn't fly, man. Like, he'll burn himself out, he'll run his team into the ground, and he'll have people begging for him to leave. But as far as Belichick goes, I think he still offers a little bit, provided that he mends his fences a little bit and changes his ways. Need a little inspiration in the kitchen? Want to try something new? Or maybe you just need a new YouTube cooking show to binge? Well, I have the answer for all 3. As You Eat It, hosted by me, Z. I invite you into my home and show you methods designed to empower and inspire you in the kitchen. Cook how you want to cook, eat how you want to eat as you eat it. That's As You Eat It, available only on YouTube. AZ, You Eat It. Check it out and let's get cooking. Switching over to hockey, And this is kind of a big one. Steven Stamkos is in the final year of his 8-year contract with the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's only 33. Tampa Bay Lightning's GM has come out and said the team will not trade Stamkos at the deadline. Currently, they're 22-17. They have 49 points. Should Tampa Bay consider dealing their longtime captain?
Nah, no way. No way. Hockey's different. You know, this guy's been through so much with this team and that city. I mean, when you think of the Tampa Bay Lightning, you think Steven Stamkos. 100%. Like, he's a champion. He's their captain. And they're going to bring him back. You're going to re-sign him. There's no way. He's going to retire a Tampa Bay Lightning. So I say no way.
Well, here's my thing. It's tied to the playoffs. As of right now, they're in the playoffs. Now, it's the last year of his contract. He'd provide a team with a boost, like the way that Patrick Kane was supposed to provide a boost to the Rangers last year, and Vladimir Tarasenko was supposed to do the same thing in terms of a pure rental. Julien Brisebois knows this. You're not going to get the prospects you think you're going to get because he's a rental. However, what makes this intriguing is that they're so close to the playoffs. I can't see them making this trade because if you get in to the Stanley Cup playoffs, all bets are off. That is the one sport. Hockey is the one sport where legitimate runs can be made by teams just squeaking in. Right? You look at the Arizona Diamondbacks. That's an abnormality in baseball. That's an anomaly. It's a product of the new playoff system. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, it was the Marlins who made the runs. And that was spaced out, 97 and 2003. And now all of a sudden you have 83, 84 win teams making runs. Football, the Packers, that's kind of an anomaly too. I firmly believe that they're going to get their ass kicked because the competition is going to get more difficult. In basketball, ones are occasionally upset by eights. We've seen that. But what eight seed has gone to an NBA final and won it? The Knicks got there in the strike shortened 99 season, but they got their asses whooped by the Spurs. Right? Hockey, that is the ultimate in any given Sunday, right? Like any team can be any team at any given time. So if I'm Julien Brisebois, I'm not trading Stamkos unless I know I'm out of it. And then yeah, absolutely in the offseason, offer him a contract, sure. But if I go on a cooler and I'm like 15 points, 20 points out of the playoff spot, you entertain it. But right now, on this day, I gotta say hold off. You gotta hold because you're in a weird pattern right now. And you got one left in you. I would liken this to the Warriors. Right? When healthy, they can do good things. The Lightning are still more than capable of doing good things. So hold tight, give it to the deadline, see where you are, revisit the situation. And if in the offseason, if you want to let Steven Stamkos go, for everything he's done with that organization, if you want to give him his gold pocket watch and send him on his way at 34 years old, by all means, you do that. You live with that at the end of the year. But not yet. Just not yet.
Are you in need of air care maintenance or service? I have the company for you. Air Care Technicians. They service the Westchester and Northern Bronx area and can help you with all your heating and cooling maintenance and service needs. Just give them a call at 914-315-1547. Again, that's 914-315-1547. Or shoot them an email at aircaretechnicians@gmail.com. These guys are the real deal as they are veteran owned, licensed, and insured. Make sure to tell them that D&Z sent you.
Fair or foul? Judging the more messed up stories of the week. All right, boys and girls, we have a statement. It's either fair or foul. Fair or foul, number one. The Saints fired offensive coordinator Pete Carmichael after 18 seasons with the organization. And he was the last coach remaining from Sean Payton's staff.
Imagine they bring in John Gruden to be the offensive coordinator.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
I think it's fair. You're talking about he was there with Drew Brees, Marquise Colston, probably Jeremy Shockey. I think it's fine. I think it's time.
Deuce McAllister.
I think it's just
Reggie.
Stills. Yeah.
Lance Moore.
Lance Moore. Yeah, it's time. And you would think he would want to be a head coach somewhere instead of just being an offensive coordinator. I think it's fair.
I mean, if you're Dennis Allen and you want to make this your team, right? You were a part of this organization. You left. You came back, right? Pete Carmichael has stayed through and through. He's the last tie to the previous regime. Yes, Dennis Allen was a Sean Payton guy, but he left and came back. Same thing with Mike Pettin. He left and came back. I think it's fair. If Dennis Allen wants to bring in his own offensive coordinator, then go ahead, bring in your own offensive coordinator.
Well, he's got to find a miracle worker that could fucking score points with Derek Carr in the center.
I mean, if you're looking, right, if you're thinking about maybe a college coach who wants to come in, or if you want to take, a Gruden is not going to, that's never going to work. But if you're going to look at a guy like a Bobby Slowick, he's not gonna make a lateral move, but a guy who's young in the role and is looking to ascend to the next level, kind of like the way Brian Schottenheimer started as position coach and moved up to offensive coordinator. Now he's the offensive coordinator of the Cowboys, so that's all you need to know. That's where Shotty is, by the way. So, you identify a coordinator, or here's a crazy idea. Byron Leftwich is out there. Byron Leftwich is trying to get back into the game. I don't know why that he's on the sidelines. I thought he did a pretty good job with Bruce Arians. But, maybe he's holding out for a head coaching job. I don't know. But I think Byron Leftwich could work with Derek Carr. I think he can make that offense go. But 11th in passing yards, 21st in rushing yards for a backfield of Jamal Williams and Alvin Kamara, that's not good. 9th in the league in scoring. They're not that far away. A couple tweaks here and there, Dennis Allen puts his stamp on it. I think it's totally fair that you let Pete Carmichael go. And who's to say Pete Carmichael doesn't end up in Denver with Sean Payton and get the band back together? But Dennis Allen's been here long enough. He can put his stamp on his team. It's fine. If you believe in him, go ahead. Go ahead. Fair or foul? Number 2, Mike Tomlin returning as coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I'm going to say foul. Just because
Really?
I think the city of Pittsburgh is done with Mike. And people that I've talked to that live there and that are Steelers fans, they're kind of done. They're kind of done with Mike. They're kind of done with Pickett. This is, I think, a good time to make a change, to move into a different direction, because what are you going to do, Z? He's coming in. He's on a 1-year contract. You're going to have to extend him if you want anything from this season. So I think it's just a waste. It's been a nice run, but, let him go out high. Let him leave on a high note.
I think it's foul. Now, you've had 1, 2, 3 500 seasons. 3 500 seasons since 2007. That's it. None below 3 seasons of 500. Everything else has been better. Have they been the juggernaut that you would have hoped for in the playoffs? No. Did they represent the AFC in the Super Bowl? Twice. And they won once. So that's also tied to Ben Roethlisberger. You need to find your franchise quarterback. Mitch ain't it. Kenny Pickett is not it. Mason Rudolph isn't it. If you let Bill Cowher go through the Mike Tomzak era, right, and the Cordell Stewart era, then you can let Mike Tomlin go through this to find his guy. Now, it might not be a guy in the draft. It might not be found that way. It might have to be, it might not be Terry Bradshaw. It might not be Ben Roethlisberger.
And he should come back.
I'm saying he should come back. I think it's foul.
Fair. Mike Tomlin returning as
That's
coach.
fair. No, that's fair. No, that's fair. Yeah, yes.
So you're saying it's fair?
It's fair. It's foul that the fans want him out.
Oh, okay.
It's foul that the fans want him out. It's fair that he earned the right to stay. So,
but he hasn't done anything recently, man. Like, what has he done recently? He hasn't done anything in a long ass time, man.
The Pittsburgh Steelers are always in the conversation. Now,
you sound like a Dallas Cowboy right now.
They're always in the conversation, right? The Pittsburgh Steelers have a remarkable streak of consistency. Like, teams would love for that, right? The worst thing you can be is irrelevant. And the Steelers are constantly in the mix. That's where you want to be. Where you don't want to be is Carolina, right? Where you're 2-14 and you're on another head coach. You fired your GM. Your owner's a fucking lunatic. That's where you don't want to be. Now, in terms of finding a quarterback, that's not great if you're trying to build through the draft. If you're trying to find the quarterback through the draft, that's not where you want to be. You don't want to be the last team in the playoffs, because it's a middle of the round playoff. That's a middle of the round draft pick. Now, who's to say? And I wouldn't mind this if I was Pittsburgh. What about Geno Smith? Why not? Why not? Right? He's
suicidal.
He's 33, yeah, so he's not young, but he could be the bridge that you need to get to the next guy. He could buy you a few years. So you put a legitimate running game there. Najee Harris, under this new coordinator, Harris and Warren look good. Pickens looked better. Deontay Johnson looked better. So Matt Canada was definitely an issue. Maybe Geno's the guy. I don't know. Could work. Why not? Kirk Cousins, definitely worth exploring. Justin Fields, worth exploring. But this guy has more than earned his seat at the table. And if he wants to go out at the end of his contract, it's only 1 year. if he wants to go out, let him go. Like, he is more than represented the city well. He's more than represented the organization well, and this is not an instance of him hanging on too long, because there's been no 4-12. There's been no 7-10. There hasn't been any of that. Let him go out on his own. Let him hoist at his own petard. Fair or foul? Number 3. Alabama hiring Kalen DeBoer to replace Nick Saban as head coach.
Foul. Foul. I have a problem with the way he coached in the national championship game, but I also really think they should have went with the Urban Meyer route, man. If you went Urban Meyer, you'd have been great.
Oh my God. Well, I don't know. I don't know about Kalen DeBoer. I think it's foul as well, but I don't know about him from the standpoint of coming from the University of Washington to the crucible that is the SEC. Right? Now, offensively, great. Right? He revitalized Michael Penix. He did all of that. But now, you're not competing just with Oregon and Oregon State, and UCLA, and Stanford. But you're not just going up against them, right? At Alabama, you're getting the best shot from everybody in the country, right? You're getting Florida State. You're going to get Clemson. You're going to get Texas. You're going to get Michigan, Ohio State. Everybody's gunning for you because you wear that giant A on your head, right? It's the scarlet letter. In this case, it's the crimson letter. Right there, branded on your head. Is he going to be able to hold up? I'm not so sure. When you look at his lineage, right? He was a head coach for 1 year at Fresno State. Fresno State, still in Alabama. He started out as the head coach at the University of Sioux Falls. Still not Alabama. And then most recently his run with the Washington Huskies. Still not Alabama. This is going to be the biggest prestige job. This is going to be the highest pressure. And I don't know. I don't think it ends well for Mr. DeBoer. Now, the Urban Meyer route, Urban Meyer's interesting because he's been there, he's done that. He's built giant programs. He's been there. He did Ohio State. He did Florida. But he also has a really bad habit of leaving people in the lurch with his, health and going to be with his family and whatever bullshit excuse when things are starting not to go his way. So that's the one thing that would scare me off of Urban Meyer. But I would agree that you need a guy with that kind of panache. The only problem is that they're few and far between college football. Kirby Smart's not going there. Dabo Swinney's not going there. Jimbo Fisher, they shouldn't touch Jimbo Fisher. So they hired him, so Alabama's got to give him a shot. But I think it's foul, and this will not end well for either Coach DeBoer or the Crimson Tide.
Your favorite podcast has its own merch line now. Go to the Fade store with DNZ.com today for all your Fade Route merch needs. I'm talking tank tops, T-shirts, sweatshirts, like yoga pants? We got those too. Like some cool accessories? We got those too. And we're not done yet. We have so much more planned for you, but check out what we have today at thefadestorewithdnz.com. That's thefadestorewithdnz.com. The Fade Store presents the Alleged Superstar of the Week Award.
All right, boys and girls, you know what time it is. It's time for the Alleged Superstar of the Week. You know how it goes. We put up a poll on our X account at FadeRouteDNZ, and you vote, and you vote, and you vote, and you vote. And the winner of said vote gets a shout out on this here show and takes home the coveted ass trophy. And do you know who took home the coveted ass trophy last week? D.
I don't.
Well, it should not surprise you at all, but one Arthur Smith took home. Well, he took it home and he's going home because he is no longer.
He took it home and he's going home.
Exactly. He boxed it up with the rest of his personal effects and he left. So, that was last week. This is this week. Who are your nominees for Alleged Superstar of the Week? D.
All right, first up, I've got your favorite, my favorite, Cowboys starting quarterback, Dak Prescott. Great numbers in garbage time, Dak, but you were looking for Lamb way too long, all day long. You couldn't get the ball to Gallup, and I'm pretty sure you threw a pick six. So, Dak Prescott, you are my Alleged Superstar of the Week. Number 2, Micah Parsons. 2 tackles, 1 solo, and 1 quarterback hit. Lawrence Taylor, my ass. Micah Parsons, you are my Alleged Superstar of the Week. And last, and certainly the least, the whole entire Philadelphia Eagles team. 10-1 to start the season, finished 1-6. 9 points in a playoff loss to a team that barely won the division. Philadelphia Eagles, you are my Alleged Superstars of the Week. What do you got, Z?
Good choices. You really can't go wrong there. Now, I'm going to start with the Cleveland Browns. Right? We didn't touch on them, right? We didn't touch on Browns Houston.
No.
Right? Great defense. You know, allegedly an all-time defense. Joe Flacco riding his magic carpet ride. You know, took his Geritol. He's feeling good. Houston 45, Cleveland 17. So, let's just pump. Oh, I gave them too many points. 45-14. My apology. I was too generous. Cleveland Browns, you are my Alleged Superstar of the Week. Not to mention, you still owe Deshaun Watson, right? You still have guaranteed money on him. Good luck with that. Cleveland Browns, you are my Alleged Superstar of the Week. Number 2, Odell Beckham Jr. In a recent podcast interview, Mr. Beckham said that the New York Giants traded him to the Cleveland Browns to fuck him over. His words, not mine.
That's great.
His words, not mine.
Oh,
that they sent me to Cleveland to die.
That's awesome.
You know, they intentionally tried to sabotage his career.
Sabotage!
I can't stand it. I know you're playing it. No. So, that's a load of crap and a big case of revisionist history. You wanted to go play with Jarvis Landry. You forced your way out of town. You drove Baker Mayfield under the bus when you found out he didn't like throwing to you as much as you wanted to be thrown to. Sorry, dude. You fucked yourself over. And you fucked yourself over and then walked into a ring with the Rams. So, just keep the Giants' name out your mouth. To quote Will Smith. To paraphrase Will Smith, keep their name out your mouth. Because they're doing just fine without you. Cleveland's doing just fine without you. Were you even a factor on Baltimore this year? Think about that. Look in the mirror. You're not Mark Andrews. You're not Zay Flowers. Look in the mirror and determine whether or not you are a real factor this season. Odell Beckham Jr., you are my alleged superstar of the week. And Jose Mourinho, legendary football coach. Legendary. Well, not so much for AS Roma, though. The Serie A team canned Jose Mourinho after they lost to AC Milan 3-1. And they currently sit in 9th place in the Serie A. 9th. Now, we all know where Jose Mourinho's been. Porto, Chelsea, Inter Milan, Real Madrid, Man U, Tottenham. A who's who. A veritable who's who. 9th ain't gonna cut it, Jose. Sorry, coach. 9th just ain't gonna cut it, especially in Serie A. Like, that's the big time of Italian football. Do better. Just do better. Jose Mourinho, you are my alleged superstar of the week. I think we've said our piece. Go to our X account at FadeRouteDNZ and vote, and vote, and vote, and vote. And for our nominee.
Just do better, boys. Just do better.
This has been the Fade Route with DNZ. Thanks for tuning in. Catch our podcast on Wednesday nights on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. So until next time, stay faded, everyone.
Time for us to run the go route. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of our podcast. If you like what you heard and want to hear more, be sure to like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Rate us 5 stars, leave us a review, turn on subscription notifications, and tell your friends. Spread the word, spread it wide.